Gonna do it.
Okay. All right, good afternoon, everyone. That is some real terrible Annapolis energy. So let's try that again. Good afternoon, everyone. Taxes. Maybe I'm the only one that chants that. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I'm Robin McKinney. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Cash Campaign of Maryland. Cash stands for Creating Asset Savings and Hope. And we are so excited to be here on behalf of the Tax Credits for Maryland Families to celebrate the Family Prosperity Act, which is going to put more money in people's pockets to spend it on the things that they need to the most. So we have a great lineup of speakers today, and we are getting all riled up for our bill hearing in the Senate today at 1 o'clock. So first we have Benjamin Orr, who's President and CEO of the Maryland Center on Economic Policy.
Thank you, everybody. Again, my name is Benjamin Orr. I'm the founder, president, and CEO of the Maryland Center on Economic Policy. For those of you who don't know us, we're a non-profit, non-partisan think tank that believes every Marylander should be able to achieve their full potential in a healthy economy that offers a widely shared and rising standard of living. And since I founded this organization 10 years ago, strengthening Maryland's working family tax credits has been a consistent priority for us. That's because tax credits like the Earned Income Tax Credit and Child Tax Credit are among the most effective anti-poverty tools that we have, helping more than 450,000 Marylanders every year to afford food, clothing, utilities, or cover large one-time expenses like car repairs or signing up for a class to advance in their career. And they are an important part of creating an equitable tax system. We are thankful that we now have the support and leadership of the Moore-Miller administration in continuing to make our state's working family tax credits stronger. The Family Prosperity Act will ensure that the families who receive the state's Earned Income Tax Credit will continue to receive the larger credit the state began providing in 2021. At a time when costs for basic necessities remain high and many federal pandemic assistance programs are ending, this credit is more important than ever. It will also expand the state's child tax credit, providing a $500 per child credit to the lowest income families who are unfortunately left out of the federal tax credit, child tax credit. You'll hear more about the impacts of these credits from our other speakers today. So that I will close just again by thanking Governor Moore and Lieutenant Governor Miller for their support and for introducing the Family Prosperity Act.
I feel like I have to woo every time. That's just how it's going to be. So next, I'm excited to welcome to the stage Gustavo Torres from CASA. That's how people know they're coming next, as I just stare at them and love them. Who I have to say has been a great partner for Cash. In addition to doing this policy work, we both do free tax preparation, and that's a really important way that we can make sure that people actually get the Earned Income Tax Credit, that they get the child tax credit that they're eligible for, is to get their taxes done for free. So thank you also for your partnership on the free tax prep side. Hold on.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Oh my God, I can see it where we are right now in Annapolis. My name is Gustavo Torres, and I am the Executive Director of CASA. Thank you, all of you, for joining us today. You know what? I am here with tremendous leaders, but in particular with two leaders who, by the way, they are not friends of our families. They are our family members. Our comptroller, our lieutenant governor. Thank you so much. You are my friends, okay? You're a family member. You know that, right? So we love you and thank you so much for joining us. And actually, you know, as you know, we are a non-profit organization. We are the largest Latino and immigrant organization in the Mid-Atlantic. More than 122,000 members. we are very, very happy to be right over here, strongly supporting the Prosperity Act legislation. We believe that it's essential and it's very, very critical. And let me tell you why we believe that it's critical. Because the pass of the legislation will be a victory for the Black and Latino immigrant families. A victory for hardworking families of every background. This victory for the mother who needs some relief paid to pay the clothes for the kids. This is a victory for the father who is struggling to make the end meet of their families. This is a victory for families who have been devastated for the pandemic. And of course, it's a victory for the most vulnerable children across the state of Maryland. You know, the former governor fought really hard to remove this credit for our families. And we say no. The assembly say no. And for 2 years, we have having these very extraordinary tax credits. Now, we are depending on the legislature to say yes, to make sure that we have this tax credit permanent. That is the reason why we are here, strongly support this legislation. And I just want to know if together we can accomplish that. Can we win this?
Yes!
Yes, we can.
Yes!
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can do it.
Yes, we can.
And now it's my honor to introduce to you Maritza Flores, who is a CASA member and is coming from Baltimore County. Maritza, please join us and welcome.
Hi, my name is Maritza Flores. I'm from Salvador.
Si yo soy del Salvador.
Bueno, yo tengo 16 años de estar aquí y vivo en el condado de Baltimore.
I have 16 years to live right here in Maryland and I live in Baltimore County.
Tengo 4 maravillosos hijos y le doy gracias a Dios por ellos.
I have 4 beautiful kids and I thank God for them.
Y tengo 14 años de hacer impuestos.
For the last 14 years I have been paying taxes.
Y de esos 14 años me sentí muy contenta porque por 14 años por primera vez pude recibir el alivio de $800.
And you know what? After 14 years paying taxes, for the first time ever,
Para
I
muchos,
received tax credit for the first time ever.
para muchos puede ser poco, pero para mí fue mucho porque pude solventar mucha ayuda en mi casa.
You know, for me it was so blessing. It was $800, and it was, for some people it's a little tiny money. For me it's a lot of money that helped my family.
Y pues para mí me siento contenta porque en nuestra comunidad hispana que tenemos el EITC, trabajamos mucho y pues nos sentimos contentos que hayan tomado en cuenta porque todos trabajamos a salir por nuestros hijos.
And right here for the Latino and immigrant community, we feel very grateful because you are thinking about us as well. As a member of Maryland, as a resident, as a citizen from Maryland, we are very grateful that you take us in this opportunity.
Y para nosotros siempre se los taxa algo muy importante, aunque a mí siempre una vez me tocó pagar $5,000 de impuestos y para nosotros era bien difícil porque en nuestra casa teníamos que dejar cosas y limitarnos.
So for me to pay taxes is very important, and I always pay taxes. Although that few years ago I have to pay like $5,000 in taxes, and I paid that, even though that was so very, very difficult for my house.
Y pienso que no solo yo, también muchas de la comunidad inmigrante que también quiere estar bien con los impuestos y trabajan día a día por sus hijos.
So we are here as an immigrant, we also pay taxes, and we are very pleased that we pay taxes because we know that it's going to be invested in our kids.
Para mí fue muy importante ese dinero porque en la pandemia cruzamos mucha crisis.
So let me tell you why the tax credit was so important for me. During the pandemic, I faced a serious, very bad challenge.
Y pues yo me levantaba todos los días porque yo trabajaba para agricultura, 14 años para la agricultura.
I was working every single day. By the way, I was working for 14 years in the agricultural sector.
y pues con el miedo de llevar el virus a mis hijos y pues llevarlos a infectar hasta que se llegó un día que llevé el virus a casa.
And I was so very scared that I'm going to have the virus. And I protect myself a lot until one day, I brought the virus to my home.
En mi casa fuimos en ese tiempo, primero fui yo y después fueron 2 infectados. Para mí fue muy duro pasar 15 días en aislamiento.
And I was infected I infected my family as well. It was very, very tough. For 2 weeks, 15 days, I was isolated.
Y sentía que no iba a ver a mis hijos porque fue muy duro para mí el COVID.
And I thought that I never am going to see my kids again because the pandemic impacted me tremendously.
Pero teníamos que salir para ganar el pan de cada día a nuestros hijos porque no nos podemos quedar las personas con ITC en casa para poder trabajar desde casa.
But regardless, I know that I have to work really hard because I need to bring food to my family. We cannot do it from home.
Y para mí es muy importante que nos sigan apoyando con esa ley porque yo todavía aún lo necesito porque...
So for me, it's very important that you keep supporting with this legislation because I still need this tax credit.
Porque nosotros también somos personas importantes para este país, le damos el lomo día con día.
Because we believe that we are so important for this country. We work really, really hard to support our families and to support the state.
Y a veces trabajamos harto, mucho como toda la comunidad hispana, para que en nuestros cheques también son quitados muchos taxes y por el final, con la esperanza que nos den un poquito, que sea a final del año. Y es injusto que nos quiten un crédito, que nuestros hijos también son estadounidenses, solo porque son hijos de uno que tienen tax ID.
And you know what? Our kids are U.S. citizens. And because we pay taxes, we believe that we deserve the opportunity also to permanently receive the tax credit.
Y yo por eso les pido que nos apoyen y seguir representando el Distrito 10 por todos que no pueden estar aquí.
And I just want to say thank you one more time. And I am representing, by the way, District 10 on behalf of all of the families who cannot be here.
Y pues, como les digo, fue algo muy duro recordar el tiempo de la pandemia y pues gracias a eso pues también pudimos solventar muchas cosas en nuestra familia, nuestros hijos, renta, comida, algo que lo necesitábamos.
And as I mentioned before, it was really hard during the pandemic, and with these tax credits helped me a lot for the rent, for the food, for everything that I need in my family.
Y qué duro saber si vas a volver a ver el rostro de tus hijos una vez más, o ya no.
Thinking about, I'm going to see my kids again, I was thinking all the time about that situation in the middle of the pandemic.
Y yo soy una madre que lucho día con día por mis hijos y pues es
and as a single mother, I fought every single day for my kids.
Y por eso les pido en este día, en nombre de toda nuestra comunidad migrante, que no nos olviden que nosotros necesitamos mucha ayuda de ustedes.
And one more time, on behalf of the immigrant community, I just want to tell you we need you.
Porque
we
por
need
eso,
you, and it's very important that we keep working together.
Porque por eso estoy aquí, porque todos nosotros sobrevivimos y luchamos por los regalos que Dios nos ha dado en la vida.
And we fight for all of the things that God gives to us in this life. So,
y para mí me sentí muy orgullosa, me siento muy contenta de trabajar para el Estado y pues, o sea, mil gracias por todo y también nos sentimos muy orgullosos y nuestra comunidad hispana lo sentimos muy contentos, agradecidos porque y ahora vamos a presentar una mujer que en nuestra comunidad hispana nos ha ayudado mucho y pues orgullosamente la vamos a presentar ahora porque es alguien de que ha estado apoyando a nuestra comunidad y vamos a tener el honor de...
And now I just want to introduce somebody who we love in our community because she has been supporting us all the time and she's part of the family.
Ahora en este primer día del mes de la herencia de la mujer es un honor y un placer de presentar a la primera mujer emigrante en servicio como vicegobernadora. Ella ha sido amiga de nuestra comunidad durante décadas y estamos orgullosos de que lidere este proyecto de ley. vicegobernadora Auruna Miller.
So let's go and welcome the Lieutenant Governor, our friend, Auruna Miller. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that lovely introduction and sharing your personal story. On behalf of the Moore Miller administration, I appreciate the broad coalition gathered here today in support of the Family Prosperity Act. As we stand in partnership between the executive branch, the legislature, and community leaders, I want to take a moment to focus our attention on Marylanders who will benefit from this legislation. 2 weeks ago, I joined Governor Moore in testifying in support of administration legislation for the first time in nearly a decade. The first bill I testified was on the Family Prosperity Act, our administration's vision to end child poverty in the state of Maryland. A state, despite having the highest median income in the country, 1 in 8 children live in poverty. The Family Prosperity Act would permanently extend and expand the state's match for the Earned Income Tax Credit, create an expanded child tax credit. Both of these programs are proven to significantly reduce poverty. But it wasn't my testimony, rather it was the testimony of Prince George's County's resident, Ms. Shante Westfield, who has joined us here today, whose powerful life story reflects the Moore Miller vision to leave no one behind in Maryland. Ms. Westfield described the effects that the pandemic had on our family's finances and the ability for her children to stay in school. She stated, quote, "This bill would keep our families stable." Ms. Westfield's story and other families, like you heard earlier, whose voices we didn't hear, is the reason for the Family Prosperity Act. The Family Prosperity Act will lift 40,000 children out of poverty, increase labor force participation with more women, improve our economy with $1.24 in economic activity for every dollar invested under the proposed bill, all while improving health and educational outcomes for families across Maryland. I'm grateful to be here with Ms. Westfield, legislators, the other powerful speakers that you heard from, community advocates who have joined in support of the Family Prosperity Act, where we will leave no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor Miller, and thank you to the Moore Miller administration for listening to our families, to listening to Ms. Flores, to listening to Ms. Westfield, to listening to the thousands of families across the state who can't be here, but over 400,000 of them are eligible for this credit. So next, I'm excited to bring our other partner in government who has to make sure that all of these policies that are passed actually put money directly into people's pocket, that they actually get their refund. So with that, I am excited to introduce Comptroller Brooke Lehrman.
Woo! Good afternoon. Well, I think it's clear that Mother Nature supports this bill. And I am thrilled as the 34th Comptroller of Maryland to be here in support of it as well. Thank you so much, Gustavo. Here you go. Gustavo for pulling us together, to Robin, to Benjamin, to our great Lieutenant Governor. I am so honored to be here today to talk about why the Family Prosperity Act is must-pass legislation this year, and what it will do to really support our economy as a whole and individual families. The Earned Income Tax Credit has been one of the country's most important anti-poverty tools since its creation in the 1970s. And I was so proud to be part of the legislature, and we have many legislators here. We were so proud during the pandemic in 2021 to pass legislation to make sure that we could expand the benefit for working families here in Maryland and ensure that that meant all working families, whether you had an ITIN or a Social Security number. And that made Maryland only the 3rd state in the nation to make sure that all working families, including Maritza and others, were included in this bill, and that was so important. So thank you to our great speaker, the General Assembly, and the Senate President and the Senate for all that they did to make sure that happened. I want to tell a quick story, like the Lieutenant Governor did, about why this legislation is so important and the impact it can have. Because the Earned Income Tax Credit, the EITC, is not a handout, it is a hand up. This is legislation that can do this. I met a woman named Aaliyah recently. She lives in Baltimore, and she told me that she found out about the free tax preparation services at the cash campaign. So she went to the cash campaign and discovered that she was eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit. Well, she used that money, that tax credit, to put into educational classes. And when she took those classes and she got a certificate, she then got a better job that made her ineligible for the EITC the next year because she was making a higher income on which to support her family. That is what the EITC is all about. It's about making sure that we support families now so that in the future they can grow and become more prosperous and more financially resilient. And it is successful. My office is dedicated, as soon as this passes, to make sure that we are redoubling our efforts to do the outreach that needs to be done, to make sure that every single Maryland family who qualifies for the Maryland Earned Income Tax Credit is receiving it. We're already looking at models around the country to do better, because we know that hundreds of thousands of families who do qualify for our state EITC are not claiming it. And we're going to make sure that they do, because we know what an impact, a positive impact, it can have on families, on children, and on our economy as a whole. So thank you to everybody for being here. Thank you to the governor, Lieutenant Governor, for introducing this legislation, and thank you to the senators and delegates who are here supporting this as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Comptroller. You can see this is a team sport. We have the administration, we have the General Assembly, we have the Comptroller's Office, we have advocates, we have families that are impacted. And for us, it's the families that are impacted each and every day that are the reason that we get up and say, this bill has to pass this year. So with that, I'm going to bring up Ms. Westfield to tell her story.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shantae Westfield. I'm a lifelong resident of Maryland. I'm a proud member of the Capital Area Food Bank's Client Leadership Council program. I'm a mom of 3 young children, ages 8 months, who's here with me today, 7 years old, and 8 years old. This bill has truly been a lifesaver to low-income families such as mine. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, I had to stop working because we lost childcare. Despite my partner working full-time hours, including overtime opportunities and healthcare, my family still struggled to make ends meet. Being essential workers during the pandemic was very honorable, but that honor couldn't help pay the bills. It has helped my family in more ways than one. The extra credit during the pandemic helped reduce our debt. It also, by having the extra money, it also helped us with paying more on the bills that we were behind on. It is much appreciated, and anything is always better than nothing. I know this for a fact because just this past month, my family was homeless. We were evicted from our apartment because we owed the rent that we were unable to pay during the pandemic. This caused my kids to miss several weeks of school. The pandemic knocked us off track, and we were unable to catch back up. Late fees on top of the back rent made it extremely hard. Fortunately, my family has since found housing. We now live in Baltimore County. By continuing the distribution of this credit, it will assist us in staying current on our rent where we live now, and it will help with other bills such as utilities, food, and clothing for everyone in the household. This bill will help keep a roof over my family's head, help keep us stable, and allow my kids to further their education without the added stress of homelessness. Not knowing where you're going to live every day is very scary. And luckily, we fought through it and we found somewhere to live. I thank you guys for listening to my story, and I hope this bill is passed today. Thank you.
So as as you can hear from the sirens, even the emergency personnel know the urgency to pass this bill. That's why I think all the sirens are going off. Lastly, we've had great support in the legislature for these bills, both on the earned income tax side and on the child tax side. So I'd like to bring up our child tax credit lead. I was like, where is she? Right behind me is Delegate Polakovich-Card.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today with Lieutenant Governor Miller, with Comptroller Learman, with my colleagues from the legislature, and some of the residents who benefited from these tax credits. And to basically lift up working families in our state and to recognize that a Marylander is a Marylander, no matter how much money they make or what type of tax ID number they have. The idea underlying this bill is very simple, that investments that we make as a state in children are a worthwhile investment in our state's future. And investments that help kids and their families to escape poverty have lifelong benefits, not just for those families, but for our state's finances. As we've heard, 1 in 8 Maryland children are growing up in poverty. And the fact is that these kids are more likely to experience lifelong disadvantages, including impaired physical and mental health, lower educational attainment, difficulty obtaining steady, well-paying employment, and a greater likelihood of risky behaviors, not just in adolescence, but in adulthood. But there is a proven solution to alleviating and ultimately ending childhood poverty: cash assistance to families through the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. As a scientist, I want to stress the strong research foundation that underpins these policies. The science is clear that tax credits are key to helping families to escape poverty and for their children to be successful. The nation clearly saw the benefits and effectiveness of the federal child tax credit in 2021 when Congress passed a major expansion of the federal tax credit. And in just a single year, childhood poverty across America was driven to a record low. But unfortunately, when that policy lapsed at the end of 2021, millions of children and their families fell back into poverty. Congressional inaction has also caused us to return to the flawed policy of excluding the very lowest income families from the federal child tax credit and only providing a partial credit to many other low-income families. In all, 45% of Black children and 39% of Latino children are being shortchanged under the federal policy. Kids being raised by a single parent are also disproportionately harmed. And that's why for the last 3 years, Senator King and I have pushed legislation for a state child tax credit. And I'll say that the passage of that legislation in the 2021 session that both created the Maryland child tax credit as well as expanded the earned income tax credit to include immigrants and mixed status families remains my proudest moment in my 5 sessions of service here in the legislature. I'm delighted that Governor Moore and Lieutenant Governor Miller are now championing this legislation, and we very much are looking forward to working with them this session. I'll just say in closing that President Franklin Roosevelt said during another time of great economic need in our country that the test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much, it is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. So the Family Prosperity Act of 2023 will improve the lives of thousands of Maryland children, and I look forward to helping its passage this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delegate. And I just want to raise up Delegate Wilkins, who couldn't be here today, but has been leading the charge on the Earned Income Tax Credit. So in closing, putting money in people's pocket works. The research backs it up. The family stories back it up. The legislature knows this. The Moore Miller administration knows this. The advocates know this. If we give people money in their pocket now, they are the experts on how to make their lives work. And we're going to pass this bill, and it's going to take all of us. And thank you so much for coming today. We're happy to answer any questions, but thank you so much to everybody who came out. It really is a team sport. Woo-hoo.